All right. We're back at it today. We have JT Hazelet from Hazelet Realty Group. I've known JT probably 5 or 6 years now. And when I think about grit personally, professionally, JT has overcome it, has dealt with it, lives in the world of grit. And grit is different for him. He's a young guy. He's 26 years old. He'll tell us his story in a few minutes. But again, I've dealt with grit in my 30s and into my 40s, whereas JT dealt with it a lot younger. So he's going to come out of this ahead of the game, and I'm very excited to see. And I watch JT, and we follow each other on social media. We live very close to each other, so we see each other. We're involved in some of the same organizations. So it's great to see you, bud.
Thank you for having me on, Tom. I really appreciate it.
You got it. So let's go right into it.
Sounds good, yeah.
You have a son that's 5 years old.
Oh, he actually just turned 6 this month.
Awesome.
I guess last month. It's November now, but
and he's a great young man.
Oh yeah, and I actually just found out a couple months ago that we're expecting our second.
Congrats.
Thank you. I really
That's
appreciate
awesome.
that. But to get into what you were saying a little bit, I found out that I was having my son when I was 19, and at the time I was working a part-time job at Dick's Sporting Goods.
Okay.
And it's actually a little bit of a crazy story. I found out, like, my now fiance told me that we were expecting at the end of the day. But in the middle of the day, I was at work, and I found out that I actually got fired from my job at Dick's Sporting Goods. So I went directly from that meeting with the boss firing me
What did you get fired for?
I showed up late one too many times. And honestly, if you know me, I was a young kid at the time, and that's exactly what I was known for, was being late.
Now, I know your dad personally as well.
Mm-hmm.
What's his rule on being late?
If you're 5 minutes early, you're late.
Yeah. So growing up with your dad,
Yeah.
how did that even happen? How is that even a thing?
Well, as everybody knows, you have two parents, and my mom is infamous for being late. Like,
Okay.
she actually will tell you personally, so I'm not saying anything out of pocket here. She will be late to her own funeral. Like, she'll be the one who's 15 minutes late to show up to that. So you definitely are. It definitely is a 50-50 split. I got a lot of good things from my dad, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about. But, that's the one thing I get from my mom that, maybe is
as years have gone on, have you gotten better at that?
Yeah, that was a lesson learned. I definitely struggled with it even after that a little bit, but as you get older, you do what my dad likes to call self-scouting, and you kind of realize the things that you're good at, the things that you're bad at, what you need to get better at. So.
And especially in your world now, which we will jump into in a couple of minutes, but like, you have to be on time.
Oh yeah, and I actually said it to you earlier. People value their time more than yours, so I have to take that on the opposite spectrum of things and value other people's time more than mine. So if I have to show up early, more times than not, I'm showing up 15, 20 minutes early to an appointment rather than 5, because like Dad says, if you're 5 minutes late or early, you're late.
Yeah, and he's right on that one. And
100%.
Again, I'm usually right under the gun. Like, if it's at 10 o'clock, I'm showing up at 9:59. So I'm not as good as your dad, but
Right.
I
get
skate
there.
right in.
Yeah.
If you think about, like, at school, like, I skate right in before that door closes.
Yeah, right. As the teacher's getting over there to close it, you're running in, right?
Funny thing is, I said recently, I used to be on time. Before I owned my own business, I was always on time. But now I'm always trying to do that one last thing before I'm needed.
Right.
So but I said, as we continue to grow, I want to get back to where I used to be on time. And again, if you know me, I'm in by 7:30 every morning. So
Absolutely.
I start my day on time. It just goes sideways.
As you get into it, things start to pile up, right?
So let's talk about, now you're having your son.
Yes, sir.
You're still a young guy, 19 years old. I mean, that's the definition of grit. Like, what? Like, you had to kind of make moves.
Yeah, so it took, honestly, I had a good conversation with my parents, my dad and my stepmom, Jess.
Shout out to Jess.
Shout out to Jess, yeah. She's a big part of who I am today, too. And we had a good conversation, which took a lot of pressure off me, because I'm sure, as most people can relate to, being a 19-year-old kid, the first thing that you think of is, oh my God, what are my parents about to say? So after we had that conversation, they eased my minds. And for those of you that don't know, my dad was a 20-year-old parent as well, which I could say something funny about that later. But like I said, we had a good conversation where they kind of eased my mind. They told me that they were there to help me. They weren't going to, kick me out.
That's great that you had the support.
And 100%. Without that conversation, I really felt like the nerves of everything happening at one time would have taken over. But they did a very good job at kind of easing the tension and easing my mind, to know that they really had my back. And once I knew I had that support, it was...
But I think when you have somebody that's got your back, like I think a lot of people don't achieve their optimal success or where they're their fullest potential, let's say,
Right.
because they don't think someone's got their back. Like being in business and in your world, you're self-employed. You
Absolutely.
work through an agency, but you're self-employed. It's your business.
Right.
When you don't have that confidence to go that next step or that next mile, and again, sometimes you're making a mistake, or sometimes you're like, I don't know if this is going to work. But
Right.
if you have someone that's got your back or someone that at least supports you, you're not scared to make that next move.
Absolutely. It makes everybody has the fear of the unknown, but when you have somebody at your back that you know is going to help get you through that, it makes that fear a lot smaller.
So let's talk about that with mentoring. I know in your career now,
Right.
again, you're a young guy in the real estate profession. So I want to talk about mentoring, and I want to talk about being a young guy in
Sounds
the real
good.
estate profession, because I think both of those are going to come back to grit and about
Yeah.
how you have to overcome things. So I see recently, within the last, I would say 9 to 12 months, you're all over social media.
Oh yeah,
You are like the Gary V of the realtors in the Brick Township region.
I try to be, and you know what? For those of you that don't know, I used to work for you at Wingman, and I learned that when I was here, that your social media presence and your presence online is really the breadwinner to your business nowadays. Obviously, referrals and everything are key, but the easiest way to get a referral now is to have somebody post it up on Facebook so thousands of people can see it.
And the crazy thing is with social, even though you don't get 1,000 likes on a post, that doesn't mean people aren't seeing it. The
Right.
most random people that I see are like, they're like, oh, I saw you on social. They're like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
I saw you were
always.
there, and I'm like, I didn't even think you even saw it. Like, and there's some there's some things that you track, and there's some things, but there's also people that are just like, that are scrollers, and they don't actually make an interaction.
Right, they don't engage.
I would love to see everybody write a comment or share it. There's small businesses. That the lifeblood is being able to get a post shared, to get even when we do the food drive and the toy drives. Like, I wish more people shared it, because it just gets that reach out further. But once that reaches out, like the world is yours. Like, and again, you keep doing nice work and people keep seeing you online. Even if you don't know that they're watching you, they're watching you, and they could share it in the sense of saying to somebody, hey, use this guy, use JT, use Tom, use whoever, because they're watching it, even though they're not telling you they're watching it, or they're not interacting as if they're watching it.
Absolutely, and that actually happens way more than people would think. That, like, when you walk into a networking event, or even if you just run into somebody at the store, they're like, "Hey, I've been seeing your social media videos. I have to tell you, they're really informative.
Yep.
I'm sorry I don't always like them, but I always see them." And
I always say to people, I put it right back in them. Just
Yeah,
like the post.
Just like the post. Right?
It's funny. A guy called me this morning before I met up with you, and he goes, oh, hey, he needed an ad onto his website, and I said, oh, one of your buddies called me. He goes, oh yeah, that guy. He goes, oh, my accountant's going to call you too. I said, great. I said, but I know that he watches a lot of our videos. I know he likes our stuff on Facebook, so it also just stays top of mind, which I think is great. And I think that's the name of the game as you continue to expand your career in real estate.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I learned here, and now actually for those of you that have an iPhone, your iPhone will tell you this, so you can fact check me if you want to. But a majority of people spend over 2 or 3 hours a day on Facebook alone, and then add another 2 or 3 hours on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter or anything. So in my mind, as a small business, I want to be where people have their eyes.
Yep.
And it's very easy for me to put up a video, a minute or 2 minutes long, of explaining something about real estate, and then I know at least a couple hundred people are going to go see it. And the best part of that is it didn't cost me anything.
Yep.
So like, I can go out and do a mailer, and I know it's going to get out to 500 people, and I know they're going to see it, and I know it's going to look great because I'm probably going to use Tom. But in that case, only 500 people are seeing it, and I'm going to spend a considerable amount of money to do it. Where if I go on social media, I know I have, for myself personally, a couple thousand people that I'm either friends with or follow me or connected with or anything. So I'm going to get 10 times that reach and spend $0 to do it. So for me, the ROI there is always important to look at, but the power of it, because like you said, you stay top of mind. And when people are doing something every single day for at least 2 or 3 hours,
Yep.
come on.
And I think, with social and with podcasts and with all this videos. I think it's something you have to be consistent with, because if you're not consistent, it's like, oh, he does them once in a while. But if you're consistent, even if people, again, you're gonna have the people that are like, all right, this is too much, and they're gonna mute you, and that's fine. But at the same time, the consistency is what's gonna stay first and foremost. There's a lot of times where Andrew, our producer, will be like, yo, we got to do that video today. And I'm like, I'm jammed up. But I know that in my head, I have to do it because I have to stay consistent. And again, it's not going to be tomorrow, or, I'm planting seeds. And I'm sure that's what you are thinking about too.
100%.
I'm planting seeds. Again, I have a nice business. I have a recurring business. I have customers that want new services, and we offer a lot of things that we can help customers grow their business with. So that's great for today, but I'm also thinking about tomorrow and 5 years from now. I'd rather start to think about 5 years from now, so that when we're there, it's like, all right, we have all these things in place, and it's just ready to roll as we expand. And again, as you expand, I'm sure you're thinking very similarly.
Absolutely. One of the first lessons I was taught in real estate was that the work you do today doesn't pay you for at least 45 to 60 days. So any work that I do, any advertising that I do, I don't expect it to pay me right now. But like you said, I expect it to set that seed. And as I continue to water those seeds, I know more and more plants are going to start to grow.
Now, in your world, you're a young guy to be in real estate, first of all.
Right.
But then to be thinking like that is even more unique for people in your age group. So
thank you.
Let's talk about real estate. Ultimately, you had a run at Wingman. Then you moved on. Then you moved out of the area for a little while.
Yeah, I moved to Florida just before COVID happened.
Then you moved back during COVID.
During COVID, because I moved to Florida to try to do my own marketing type company. And 6 months into being there, the world shut down, and all the small business customers got shut down as well. So
that was a scary time.
That was definitely a little rough. But during that time, honestly, everything happens for a reason. So during that time, it was the same time Dad wanted to go out on his own and start his realty group. So as he was doing that, I took the time to get licensed and got licensed, and that's ultimately where I got started.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So now you start selling real estate. You're a young guy. You're at that point, what, 23, 24?
Yeah.
Did people be like, how do you know anything about real estate? There's a lot of things in real estate. I just feel like, and I would use you because I know you, and I think that you're a good guy, and your dad has always done, I think most of the transactions that I've done in New Jersey, your dad has been with me on. So, in your age group, you're a young guy to be doing this. So, how did you overcome that? Because there had to be some people that were, called up and, they spoke to you, and then they met you, and they're like,
deer in headlights. I'm talking to a 26-year-old kid.
I'm talking to a young guy, and what does he know about real estate? He may never have owned it. He may never have fixed a water heater. And in real estate, when you buy a house, I mean, you're going to tell me if I'm wrong. There's just so many there's so many one-off things that happen. There's all of a sudden, you're in the house and you're making your monthly payments on your mortgage and your taxes and your insurance, and then the water heater goes. Or, the furnace blows at 2 o'clock in the morning and it's freezing when you wake up the next morning. No heat, right? And you have no heat, and you're going to have a big bill ahead of you to fix this. So, but I would expect people my age and older looking at you and being like, well, do you know what to do? Almost because they feel like if you've, I feel like this on the website. I've gotten calls from roofers before, and they said, did you ever build a roofer's website? Even if I hadn't, which I have, if I built a contractor's website or I built an insurance agency's website, I can build a roofer's website. But they feel like you have to have that that intimate knowledge of their business. Whereas, again, in my world, if I can construct a website for you, for this person, to me, it's all the same. I'm just putting in different content pictures and information, but ultimately the structure of what I'm building is the same. But in your world, I feel like some of these people are like, oh.
Absolutely. It actually, again, it happens a lot. But that goes back to having grit. I don't like to shy away from the things that people see what you can call a weakness.
You almost have to take them head on.
100%. And I would never challenge anybody and say just because I'm young doesn't mean I know what I'm doing, because that's not the way to, come across. Yeah. And you get more bees with honey, not vinegar. So the way that I overcome that is I just make sure that I take extra time to explain things to them, and I don't try to just go through it quickly, because and I try to put myself in their shoes. Like, I would probably feel the same way if I was working with somebody who looks like they've never owned a home before.
But you do own a home.
I do, right? I do now.
Congrats on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And that's awesome that you bought a house so young. Again, you practice what you preach. Like,
Yeah.
I've always said, I can't make someone buy something from Wingman that I wouldn't use myself.
100%.
So like that kind of falls right into that line of.
I steal that 100% from you. Like, I would never ask or try to teach somebody something that I wouldn't myself do. Like, I wouldn't tell somebody to go take a risk that I myself wouldn't take.
Exactly. Because that becomes a salesman, whereas I look at myself as I'm helping you grow your business. You're helping them find their perfect forever home or their investment property or whatever that case may be, or their business property. But like, I think where salesmen come in and salesmen get a bad rap, and some of them deserve it, is because they'll sell you garbage, and it's that they would never buy themselves.
Right.
And if I was never going to buy it myself, I can never sell it.
I wouldn't believe in it. And
I couldn't believe in it.
And you can tell as somebody who does sales, you can tell when the person you're sitting across trying to sell you
when
something
they look down and they're like,
it's kind of, it could help you if you do this, or
I couldn't do it. I'd rather not make that sale. I'd rather, again, walk away and say, let me help you find someone that's good for this. But I couldn't be the guy to write that deal. And
that's exactly how I feel. And that really ties into what we were just trying to say, and being like young and trying to overcome those things. And I guess the easiest way for me to say it is I just make sure that I explain things, and then I also know for myself that I have a very experienced team of people around me. Because as a real estate agent, I don't do everything. Like, I don't know if that's a misconception that most people have. Like, I write the contract, I show you the house, I help you negotiate it, and all of those things, but I don't tell you how old your water heater is or how old your roof is, and I don't protect you legally. That's what your lawyer's for, and that's what your home inspector's for.
And you don't do the mortgage.
I don't do the mortgage, but I know that I have a team of professionals behind me that are the best in the business at what they do. Like, I know my mortgage guy, Mike Martone, is going to not only write you a mortgage, but he's going to help you financially make sure that you qualify and afford the mortgage, because as he always likes to say, what you qualify for isn't always what you could afford. So one of the big things that he puts on is, I'm going to make sure that you can afford what we're doing here. And
he's a great guy.
He's fantastic.
I know him for as many years as I know your dad. He's a stand-up guy. He's a man of the community.
Absolutely.
He does right by all. So
and he genuinely cares about what he does, which is what really gravitates me towards him.
Yep.
And he cares about helping people, which is, again, something great. And then for the home inspector, I typically use Don Oakes from Beacon Inspections.
Okay.
He, when I tell you, is the most meticulous person that I've ever met, but he explains things in such a calm manner.
Yep.
So like you were just saying, like, hey, your water heater's towards the end of its life. Some people, and I've heard other inspectors say this, hey, the water heater's shot, you're probably going to need a new one. And then immediately what that does is it puts a fear response into the buyer. They're like, oh my God, the water heater, I know that's going to be expensive. And then if the seller doesn't fix this, then I don't know that I could buy this house, when in reality, the water heater's the cheapest appliance out there. It's like a $1,100, $1,200 thing, and in most cases,
it's an easy fix. It's like a 3-hour fix,
right? And why I like Don so much is because, just like that, he explains, hey, this is an easy thing. Don't panic about it. And then on the opposite end, when it's something to panic about, he delivers that well too. Like, hey, the roof here is shot. Like, it looks like there's water coming through it.
Depending on the house, and some of these things, if you're going to be there for the long term, it's worth making the investment. I recently bought a house about 6 months ago, and my wife fell in love with this house, and it was the end-all, be-all for her.
Right.
And she walked in this house, and she said to your dad and me and your dad could laugh about this. She's like, it needs no work. I looked at her like, what?
Rose-colored glasses.
I go, what are you talking about? It needs no work. And she left, and she was adamant to me. She's like, Tom, this doesn't need any work. But at the same time, she really loved the house.
Right.
And if that's what's going to make her happy, and that's what's going to, a place that she feels like is home, no problem. Yep. Let's buy the house. And when we got in there, so now I'll say to her like once a week, like, oh yeah, remember when this house needed no work? As we've done about 10 remodels, 10 projects already. I think the only good thing is I think we're coming to the end.
That's good.
Like, I see one or two more things she hasn't noticed them yet, but I've seen them.
You see
But
them.
I
Yeah.
saw 12 things when we went in, so like we're
there,
down
yeah.
to the wire. I'd say we're 90%, 95% done. I'd love to have your father come back and see it because he could see what no work it
Oh,
needed.
yeah. Yep.
But long and short of it, it's a great house. And again, the way I look at it is, if you're going to be there for 15, 20 years, who cares? Make the
Absolutely.
investment, make it everything you want it to be. And to me, and again, I don't want to spoil what you say to homeowners. I don't know what you say to
No,
homeowners,
it's okay.
but to me, the home is not an investment per se. To me, the home is a place for you and your family to enjoy
Absolutely.
time and spend time with each other and have great parties and holidays. But to me, it's not an investment. Yes, now when you sell a home, a lot of times people take equity out of that house. But while you're doing it, I would never renovate something or do something for the investment or the return.
Absolutely.
But I love the appreciation when you sell a house.
Absolutely.
But to me, it's not an investment per se, and like I wouldn't not get something done because this isn't going to appreciate. If you and your family like it, get it, enjoy it, enjoy every minute of it, and then worry about it. Worry about this at the sale time. If you don't get that dollar for dollar back, or you don't get an ROI. It is what it is.
You got the enjoyment of it.
You got
while
the
you were
enjoyment
there.
of it. To me, that's the ROI.
And 100%. And what you just said, I try to explain to my buyers is there's a difference between buying a home and a house. And I try to explain, especially to the younger first-time buyers,
Yeah.
like you're not buying a home that you're going to live in for the next 20 or 30 years. Most people can't even afford to do that, just with how things are going. But you're going to go buy a house that you're going to live in for about a year, maybe 2, 3, and then use that to upgrade to the dream house.
Yep. And again, you probably have to tell your customers that they have to stay for 2 years to get that tax benefit.
Right. You don't want to pay
Like that 1 year or the 18 months, at that point, hang in there for the 2 years.
Hang in there for the extra couple months.
Yeah, but I mean,
avoid the
those
capital
are the
gains.
kind of things like I feel like your generation of people, they don't understand. They don't know that. And it's not through no fault of their own. And, again, this isn't a conversation about education, but the schooling doesn't teach you these things. So you have to come out and find a person like yourself, like a Mike Martone, like those kind of people to kind of explain these things, because it's not, everybody doesn't know it. But I think with your social media posting, I think you're getting there. And I think that,
Thank you.
Tell me more about, like, I saw something the other day about how much people have in their IRA versus their home, because there's something to be said for that too.
Well, right. The average, I don't know. There was a couple things I put out, but I'll tell you I think the one that you're talking about is the average person getting ready for retirement at 65 has about $265,000 in their savings account, 401ks, or whatever else combined. But what most people don't realize is that the average person gearing up for retirement spends about $55,000 a year on living expenses. So when you do the math, that's about 2.5 years of living expenses. And at the same time, most people who are 65 own their house outright or very close to it, and have $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in equity because they bought their house 30, 40 years ago, and it's gone up in value 4 times. Like, it's quadrupled in value since they bought it.
That's great. So that they have. And again, I think it's explaining to people all these kind of things. And, when you think about, like, as you're rising the ranks in a job, you got to buy a house because you need that tax write-off too.
Absolutely.
Like,
most people don't even realize that you could write off your interest on your house.
Yeah, so like when you think about the interest on your house, you have a house and you look at your payment, and the first 10 years of the payment, it's loaded.
You're paying interest,
You're paying interest on that note. So, like, there's a real good tax benefit to, and I know it's hard. Everybody's, you make money and then you spend money on, on different things, and the house is one of those ones where it's like expensive. But once you get into that, also I think it's a great jumping off point to the second house, to more of your dream home or your forever home, because you find that having that, you have the equity, usually for that second down payment.
Absolutely, and that's what I like to say as a younger person, that a majority of the older generations missed, or not missed, maybe it was different timing. I can't really talk too much into that because I wasn't around. But most of the first-time buyers that I work with, their parents, the first time they bought their home was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath dream home that was $100,000. And they're trying to set up the same thought process or apply the same thought process to what's happening now, where you could buy a 3-bedroom, 1-bath condo for $400,000.
It's crazy.
Right.
And, where we live is even harder, I think. The Jersey Shore is a tough spot. I mean,
It's popular.
It's very popular. You have the people from North Jersey that want to live that want a second home on the Jersey Shore or want to downsize from North Jersey down to here, from Bergen County, from Essex County. You have the people from Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Staten Island that want to move onto the Jersey Shore. So, I think some of these towns are just essentially they're very hard for a young professional to buy, no matter what their salary is.
Absolutely.
Because and I think that there's some irrational purchases,
sometimes
emotional, irrational. Like they'll spend whatever, but when you think about it, if you live, let's use Brooklyn or North Jersey for example, you have a place where in North Jersey the taxes could well be $25,000-$30,000.
Right.
So now your tax bill down here might be 15. Well, you already just saved 15,000, and taxes never go down.
Right.
So now, and then you sell your house that has equity in it, and you put a lot of that into
the new
place.
Right.
So now your mortgage is very low, and you've cut your taxes. So right off the bat, you're saving money.
Right.
So I think that when you look at some of the people that live on the Jersey Shore and work on the Jersey Shore, they have a competitive. There's not an advantage. Because there's, when you look at it, it's there's a lot of people that are doing stuff.
Absolutely. And to bring back up grit, as you said, it's very competitive. Just in general, the average person knows 12 real estate agents. That's just an average.
That's
based on how many agents there are and everything like that. But like you said, it's very competitive. Even as an agent, doesn't matter if you're older or younger or whatever. So the way that I see to overcome that is to just take the time to educate your clients, because the fact is most people, at least in my experience, because I work with the majority of first-time buyers and people in their 40s, I think is the oldest client I've had. But most of them don't realize that what you were just talking about with the tax implications and how to use real estate as actually a financial tool to either, get into a nicer home or downsize or save money on taxes or whatever the case may be. So what I spend a lot of my time on is educating the clients on those things and how to use real estate as a financial tool.
I bet you, and I don't know if you do this, like a quick spreadsheet on an iPad could probably help you, because you could put in the numbers, you could see real quick. I was talking on this a couple weeks ago with Chelsea, and we were talking. I think I was talking to Tony about it, but Chelsea and I do. When we look and value businesses now, like in the old days, the days of when we got Shore and Shubu, it was a gut feel. Now it's more on a spreadsheet. It's based on
analytical.
It's a financial model. Like I have two I have two NDAs out right now to look to take over businesses, and one person sent me their stuff yesterday, and it was like it's very hard to analyze, because I got a screenshot of a piece of paper that was printed out, and I'm like, I started to put it into a spreadsheet last night, and I'm like, oh, this is a lot of work. Yeah. But it's one of those ones where I don't think that everybody analyzes everything based on the numbers. It's a lot of gut feels, and
absolutely.
I think in your world, the more that you keep educating them, I love the fact that you're educating them, and you're educating them about all these different things, the interest payment, the insurance, the taxes. I'm sure you get into 1031 tax exchanges with some of these clients. So, I mean, it's very cool that you're doing all these kind of things to help educate buyers. And I think younger guys, if they can get in, once they get in, then their grit and their hustle gets them to get a second one or sell the first one for a better second one. And, I think that's how the game works. And I think I go back 20 years ago, a lot of my moves were in real estate before I owned a business. Now at this point, I don't have any rentals. The only rental I have is the building. I have a building, commercial space that, and, Wingman occupies one of the spaces, and we rent out one. But, I used to have rentals, and that's a hustle in of itself.
Oh, yeah.
And again, I think in my world, because I own Wingman and I own other businesses, to me, the rentals weren't as great for me, because anytime I take my eye off a business to go collect the rents or deal with an issue, to me it wasn't as beneficial. But there's a lot of guys that would end up getting like a house sitter, essentially, like
Absolutely, yeah, like
a
a
property
manager,
a property manager, so that they dealt with all that stuff. And at times I looked at it, and at times, again, you have to look at what's best for your own situation.
Absolutely.
So at the moment I don't have rentals, but I mean, I think for the younger guys and yourself, people like that, like there's a whole business of that.
Absolutely, and that's really what I have at least recent have been trying to turning my business towards. I like to work with people my age and really educate them on exactly what you're saying, because one of my favorite things to say about real estate is if you look at the value of real estate, you can't find a 10-year period, let alone a 20 or 30-year period, where real estate didn't go up.
Yep.
Even if we talk about 2008, that corrected by 2012, 2013, 14. That's
What's that
4, 5,
stat
6
you said
years.
to me before we went on air this morning about the 90%?
Oh, 90% of all millionaires became millionaires by buying and holding real estate, because over time they get the appreciation, and that's really just what takes it off. That doesn't even count the cash flow that they get or any of the tax benefits. That's just the value of the real estate going up over time.
I think with real estate, one cool thing about real estate is you can buy a house with like 3 to 5% down. I mean, keep me honest. So 3% down, the bank's covering 97%, but you get the appreciation of it. And if you do a refi, cash out refi, that's not taxable.
Nope, it's not taxable. It's not capital gain. It's not income. It's a loan. And just like you were saying, you can get in with a 3% down payment, but I bought my house. When I bought my house, I bought it with $0 out of pocket.
Wow.
So what we did was, and shout out to Mike Martone for this because he's the one who gave me the idea. But what we did was, in New Jersey, they offer a first-time buyer down payment assistance program, and they give you $15,000 to credit towards your down payment and/or your closing costs.
Oh, cool.
So what we did when my fiance and I bought our house is we used that, and then we were able to negotiate a seller's concession. So the seller ended up paying our closing costs, and they ended up paying 100% of the closing costs. So when we moved into the house, we paid $0. So what I like to say is I tell people I turned $0 into a $300,000 in one single day. What else can you do that with? If you buy $50,000 worth of stocks, you get $50,000 worth of stocks. If you buy $50,000 worth of real estate, you typically get $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 worth of real estate. There's no other game that plays like that. And like you were saying, your money doesn't appreciate off the $50,000 or the $0 that you put in. It appreciates off the value of the house, which is the $300,000 or whatever the value is.
And then you have a collateralized asset if you want to go to the bank and get another loan, or again you do that cash out refi. And if you have equity in your house, then you could buy something, buy a second and start to accumulate wealth. And I think I think I'm very proud of you. I think you're doing a lot of great things, and I think that I want to see you continue on this path, and I want to see you continue to push and educate and tell people what's going on, because I think when you look at all this stuff, there's a lot of great things that you've done, and you've overcome a lot, and you've been tough, and you've been you hustled through it, and and I think about hustle and grit, like you've accomplished it, and I just want to give you a little shout out that you're the first guy that we've had on the podcast. The podcast, as you know, is very new. It's about a month old now. I think this is our you're the fourth episode. You're the first person that's not a Wingman W-2 employee that is on, because I felt that you've done a lot in a short amount of time, and I don't want to boost your ego too much, but I wanted to have you as the first guest, because I think you've done a lot of great stuff at a young age, and you've fought with grit, and you've overcome grit, and you've taken grit head on, and I think that that's really impressive. And again, for a 26-year-old guy, even if you're a 46-year-old guy, I'd say what you've accomplished is a great deal so far, and I want to see you continue. And I definitely want to have you come back, in 6 months, a year, and let us know what's going on, and tell us, what's trending in the real estate world. And we're going to continue to watch your videos and continue to like everything, so that more people see it.
Well, thank you, Tom. I honestly can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And I think I made a video not too long ago where I gave you that shout out, but I really credit you with a lot of my business world knowledge, because I wasn't exposed to the world of business until I worked at Wingman. And I know that necessarily I wasn't a great employee when I worked here, because I was still in my younger days, but the experience that I got through working at Wingman and the knowledge I got through working with Wingman, I still use today, and I consider to be invaluable
Awesome.
in
I appreciate
my life
that.
and my business. So
That's
thank
great.
you, Tom.
So, we will air, we air it probably within the next week. But I want to get a picture before you leave today, the
Absolutely.
studio, so that we could post that on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and wherever else Andrew's going to post it, just to let people know that you are going to be coming on soon. And I hope that once it comes on, you take a listen and share it with your group.
I'm going to shout it from the rooftops. Don't worry about it. It'll be everywhere.
Thanks again for coming in.
Thank you again for having me.
And one last thing, tell us your website so that anyone that wants to visit you.
Cool. My website is jthazelet.hazeletrealtygroup.com, and all of my social media is real estate with JT _.
I love it. I love that real
Yeah.
estate with JT.
Real estate with
Perfect.
JT.
So we will follow. We'll share this and tag you. But I'm glad that you were able to make it in today, and I know that you're going to go be an official.
I get to officiate a wedding today. That's
awesome.
right. Man of
So,
many talents.
So when you're not selling real estate, and make sure that these people buy some real estate from you.
Hopefully, that's the goal.
All right. It was a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you again, Tom.
All
I really
right.
appreciate it.
Have a great day.
You too.